Moin, Servus, and welcome to the channel, guys. Yeah, as the title said, first time that I'm on a naked bike, performance naked bike, I would say. The very first bike I've ever ridden back in 2011 was a Suzuki GS400X. Technically, of course, a naked bike, but it was more of a transportation device than anything else, I would say. So this is the first time that I'm really on a proper naked bike with, let's say, more sporty ergonomics and so on. And coming from a sports tourer slash adventure bike background, I really struggle to understand the bike, at least at the moment. It gets a little better. I've some 30-40 kilometers now behind me. But when starting to ride the bike, in comparison to my 1300 GS, and yes, I will, of course, draw a couple of comparisons to that GS because that's my bike, right? It just doesn't feel that nimble and agile as I expected it to. But I think I slowly understand that I have to ride slightly different with this bike. What do I mean by that? On my GS, I can just simply tap the side of the bar and the bike immediately flicks over into the corner. And this is not happening on this bike, so I have to use my body a little bit more and I have to use the handlebars slightly different. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, besides that, I do like the bike so far, besides the handling stuff that is happening. The engine sounds incredible. It feels quite nice. Yes, I'm used to having a bit more punch, of course, with the EGS, which has more horsepower and so on, and mainly torque. But still, I'm very interested in this bike. I'm just interested to get to know a different type of riding. Yeah, enough of talking. Let's get started. Let's go ahead. I do have here, it's quite nice by the dealer. They have a SP Connect connection there, and my phone case has the same, but the problem is, first downside I would say, the bike doesn't have a USB connection. So, well, that's something I have to get used to. But I think it's an update possibility that you can get from Yamaha. What I forgot to mention is that this is not going to be the traditional review or first impression video, but I'm testing this bike to figure out whether I want to buy it as a second bike in my garage. That means I will not be very objective, but pretty subjective, to be honest. Please keep that in mind while watching this video. But that's a difference, definitely in comparison to what I'm used to. It's a much more stable bike. I know people who ride these kind of bikes more often say the MT-09 is supposed to be nervous feeling almost. I can't say so myself as of yet, but maybe I will figure out what they actually mean by that. So while riding through the village right now, let me quick have a talk about some things that I noticed already. I really like how elastic the engine is, as it's very easy to ride around here 40 kilometers, fourth gear, zero problems. Even lower than that, the engine is not complaining at all. You know, it's just doing its job. What I don't like so much though is the on-off throttle. Okay, I currently have those guys in front, so I can't really show it. But it's... You see that? This is... I don't know. I think that could be done a little bit better generally. Besides that, I've started to gel a bit more with the bike. I slowly start to understand how it works, with how to lean properly and how to get it to move. It's still a bit reluctant, I would say, to move into corners, at least with me. I guess that's a me problem and not so much a bike problem, but that's how it is. The dash is decent, could be slightly bigger generally, but it's clear to read everything. The numbers and so on, they are large enough. Could be maybe slightly larger, but it's fine. What I don't like is that the blinker indications on the sides and some other information there is too small, in my opinion. There's so much space on each side. There's so much space on each side of the display. I think they could have just made those indications a bit bigger so you can see them from the corner of your eye. The switchgear is fine. Took me just a short period to get used to the different indicator buttons there, but by now I'm used to them. Nothing dramatic. Yeah, fine with me. The switchgear generally is quite good. It's easy to set the cruise control and everything. What I don't like about the cruise control though is that you can only use it from up above 50 kilometers per hour. So if I drop below 50 and I want to set, you can't see it, but if I want to set the cruise control, it just doesn't work. I have to accelerate above 50 and then it stays on with the cruise control. Quickly, what I meant by tapping the sides. So yes, it works, but I have to use my body a little bit more. On my 1300, if I just tap it, maybe I can show a little clip of that from my bike. It just moves immediately over and I don't really need to use any force on it. This bike is a bit more reluctant to do the same thing. Okay, that's a thing. What's nice, you can reset the cruise control with rotating the throttle forward. That's definitely a plus. Quick shifter, as I just used it, is quite nice upwards. I think downwards it could be a bit smoother. I tend to use the engine braking for decelerating into a village or something like that. So if I'm just like downshifting like that, to use the engine braking a bit, sometimes there's a bit of a rocking back and forth in the bike. Okay, well, could be implemented better, but therefore the upshifts are very smooth, which is not something I can necessarily say about my 1300 GS, at least not in the lower gears. So, hey. Now in a second it will get interesting. One thing I don't like so much are the brakes. They are very hard. They're basically the opposite of my GS brakes, where they're very soft in the beginning. It's a bit like on my GS when I use the rear brake first and the front brake becomes very hard. That's a bit what this one feels like constantly. The on-off throttle is a bit of a thing. It unsettles the bike a little. And I find braking into the corner not the nicest, as the brakes are so hard and therefore tricky to control. But the bike is absolutely fun here. Can't say anything negative there. fun, absolutely. Question is it that much more fun? Well, I'm not used to the bike. I would need much more kilometers. Always this on-off throttle is killing me. I would of course need more kilometers on the bike to get more used to it generally compared to my GS. But I mean, I've ridden that street of course before on my GS on 50/50 tires. I guess on full street tires. I don't know if it's that much of a difference, to be honest. It's lighter, definitely. It's definitely lighter. I am not 100% convinced, to be honest. Yes, it was fun to ride that track, but would it be worth it for me to pay, with the accessories, let's say, that I might be interested in, around 12,000 euros to get a performance that is probably better than the GS, but I'm also not so sure how much better, because I have ridden this track or this road before, only on 50/50 tires. So I don't know what it would feel like to have some more sporty tires on the GS and ride the same track. And even on the 50/50 tires I had a lot of fun there. And again, this on-off throttle is killing me. Man, oh man. Yeah, that's really not good, especially in like lower gears, lower RPM. There's like an yeah, okay. Alright guys, I guess it's time for conclusion. So what do I think of the bike? I think the video came across quite negative so far. Please do not misunderstand this. I don't think that this bike is bad or that nobody should buy it or anything like that. Of course not. I'm looking at the bike as a possible option for me besides an already existing bike that I own. So the bike really needs to offer things, a lot of things that are much better than what I already have with my GS. And I personally don't see it justified to have this bike besides my already existing bike. If I was on the lookout and for a street bike only, as like my only bike, oh, that was an old BMW, cool. If I was to look for a street bike only, I wouldn't want to have any off-road capabilities and all this kind of stuff. And I say, okay, I only have a bike, one bike for the road. I think this bike would be quite cool. It is okay-ish with the comfort. The seat, I think, suffers because it has a bit of a ball shape to it, which is hidden underneath the padding. And therefore, if you're just slightly heavier, you directly sit on the actual structure of the seat and not on the padding anymore. And well, my rear is a little bit too large for that tiny seat. That's how it goes. But for a second bike, just for a fun riding, this bike is not really offering that much to me in comparison to the bike I already have. Hey, hello. Not that much that I already have. So therefore, I think this bike at least is not gonna stay in the competition, let's say, for a possible second bike. Maybe I will have a look at some other mid-sized naked bikes. Just a minute ago there was a Z900 passing by from Kawasaki. That might be an interesting bike to look at as well. But don't get me wrong, it's a very good bike. It's fun to ride. The engine is a peach. Yeah, it's a fun engine. It sounds great. I would say that's maybe one thing that this bike offers in comparison to my GS, where it's much better. The sound stage that you get from this bike, from that induction and so on, is quite impressive. I don't think you need more. I can understand if people want to have more sound, but I think this is perfectly fine and more than sufficient to have. Personal opinion. I'm not the sound connoisseur per se. Yeah, I'm happy to have a more quiet bike as long as it rides nice. Okay, that's it. Enough rambling. Great bike generally, just not for what I'm looking for at the moment. Maybe eventually at another time in my life I might come back to it, but currently not. I hope you enjoyed this different kind of video, especially for my channel. If you did, please consider to leave a comment if you are interested in this bike, or if you have a completely different opinion, of course. Please feel free to give a thumbs up to the video, and that would be the best actually if you consider to subscribe. Until then, see you in the next video.